How aware were you of how much pressure you were under? What did you do to get you through that time?
I mean, the first step is the courage to open your mouth. Be attached to no outcome and open to everything. That ability to think different and not do what everyone else is doing. If you do what everyone else is doing, you're just going to have what everyone else has. I'm still winging it. I'm still making things up as I go along. We mistakenly believe that in order to be productive, we have to be busy. But rest is as productive as work. Pain is part of the journey, but pain on its own just creates suffering. Pain with reflection creates purpose. Through that pain, you acquire wisdom. The wisdom to build a better life, the wisdom to show up stronger, and to come back with a story that will inspire others.
Today, you're going to meet Simon Alexander Ong. Now, Simon is known as a global keynote speaker, but he's also an author, an energy life coach, and also an investor. But this is the story of someone who at key points in his life, when he has faced crisis and moments of incredible pressure, has used his framework for how he lives his life and how he has built his business to turn things around even when it felt like everything was against him. Welcome to Don't Work Harder, the business show brought to you by Atomic, and I'm your host, Suman Randhawa. This is the show where we teach you how you can take huge leaps in your business, not just by working harder, but by working braver. Simon, welcome to Don't Work Harder. It's great to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me.
So from me cornering you in a field at Ideas Fest late last summer to finally getting you in the studio, thank you for coming in. For us, this is the opportunity for us to speak to successful entrepreneurs like yourself. But I guess what we love to really focus on is what is it alongside Don't Work Harder, alongside hard work, that has given you the sustained success that you've had. But you talked about an incredibly challenging time in 2021, which obviously most of us know as lockdown.
Yeah.
Most entrepreneurs found that a very challenging time. Speaking was one of your key revenue streams. Suddenly you couldn't travel. Tell me what was going on at that time for you.
Absolutely. So if I go back to April 2020.
Okay.
That was the first month that we entered lockdown here in the UK. It was also the same month that I landed a book deal with Penguin to write my book, Energize.
Amazing.
And the same month that my wife gave birth to our daughter.
Okay, a lot. Yeah.
So a lot was happening in the space of just a few weeks' time.
Wow.
And of course, as you said, with speaking, the revenue went straight to zero because nobody could put an event on, at least not for the first few months while everybody adjusted to moving to remote working, to doing everything virtual. That picked up in September of that year. So everybody did it again, but it was virtual. But just for those first few months, it was uncertain all around. And so for me, it was a real challenge because not only did I wanted to show up as a father and a husband, but I had to pivot my business. I had to write a book now. I had to hit deadlines in order to get the first draft to the publisher and to get it out in 2 years' time. That was the goal. The aim was to get the book out in April 2022. So that gave me 2 years to finish the draft, get it edited, get it printed, and start the marketing.
And when I hear that, I could literally, I can feel my stomach clench as that felt and sounded like the ultimate pressure cooker. So for most people at that moment, I would imagine that there would be a huge amount of stress and pressure. How aware were you of how much pressure you were under, and what did you do? Like, what did you do to get you through that time?
Sure. I think my response would have been very different if I hadn't have gone through the 2008 financial crisis. Having gone through the financial crisis in 2008 and having worked in finance at the time, mentally that prepared me for the pandemic. I obviously, of course, I didn't know the pandemic was coming all those years later, but I think having gone through similar challenges in the past, mentally it prepared me for what was to come. And I knew that I had to take a pause. I had to go out, walk in nature, be with my thoughts, just to understand the best way to respond to this. Yeah. And what made it easier at this point was the support network I had. My wife was a great support. I had... Even
though she just had the baby?
She just had the baby because she just said to me, if you need to get stuff done, then I can take a step back a little bit. I can help support with raising our daughter Sienna. And we found a way forward where I said to her, if you kind of help a bit more on the family side, I can support us at least in the next 12 months. So you don't have to worry about anything. If you need to take a step back a little bit from business, I will make sure that you don't have to worry about anything else. And you can just focus on the role of mom. That was tough for all of us because we had to make some changes in terms of how we went about doing things. And I think also having people to lean on outside of the home. So I knew that if I did this alone, it would have been so much harder. It would have been so much more challenging. And I had friends that were also on the book journey. And I said to them, why don't we meet on a regular basis on Zoom? And we could have a writing session. Yeah. And we would mute our audio. Yeah. So we could just see each other on screen doing our writing. Almost akin to going to a gym class. And the moment you feel like you want to give in, you look around the room and there's still people going, and that motivates you to finish the class. And so that was one of the things I was very intentional about, was to be around people still moving forward, still showing up, because inside of me, that would keep the fire alive. That would keep me focused on what I wanted to get at the end of these 2 years when we came out of the pandemic. And there were moments when I did want to give in. There were moments where I said to my wife, shall I tell the publisher now's not the right time? You know, with all the things going on in my life right now, maybe I should just put this on ice or push it back. And I remember my wife saying to me, Simon, look, there's not many people that get a book deal with Penguin. There's not many people that have this opportunity to write a book. So you have to think about the position you're in. It's such a good position to be in. And imagine what it's like when that book is finally out in the world and people are holding it in their hands. So the conversations we had really kept me focused. And again, it goes back to her support. That's why the book at the beginning, it was dedicated to her and how much of a role she has played in my journey.
You said you did feel pressure. So on one hand, you've got this amazing, like, you know, you've got the birth of your daughter, Sienna, you've got a book deal with Penguin, but then you've got this revenue stream that has literally just, it's like fallen through the ground. Yeah. What did you do at that moment? Can you recall what you did when it was considering, right, how am I going to replicate this revenue, or what did you do in that moment?
I think it's not what I did in that moment, it's what I did before. Okay. In the sense that I was very fortunate to have created different streams of income. So up until that point, I wasn't just speaking. I was coaching, I was consulting, I was doing content. And so I knew that each of those streams may be seasonal. Yeah. You know, some years you're going to have a lot of speaking. Some years you have less invitations to speak on stage. And that's where the other streams come in. So as the speaking dropped to zero, interestingly enough, my coaching shot up because people had more time to reflect on their career. Yeah. People are at home. They want people to share their thoughts with. They want to start planning their future. Right. Usually I had people come to me that were interested in working together saying, I would love to work together, Simon, but I just don't have capacity right now. And now when the pandemic occurred, they would come back to me and say, actually, I've got a bit more time now. Can we pick up the conversation? So on the coaching side, that really started picking up again. And that was because people just had more time to themselves. And when I say time, not just time, but time to reflect. Yeah. Time to reflect on where they were in their life's journey and whether where they were was where they wanted to be.
And multiple revenue streams. How intentional has that been for you as you've been growing your business? So your business been going around 12 years, is that right?
10 years. So I quit the financial industry in 2016. So 2017 was the first full year. Right. And at the beginning, I was not intentional because I said to myself as a very naive entrepreneur, if I could build a successful one-to-one coaching practice. And
it was coaching you started with.
It was coaching what I started with. If I could build a successful one-to-one coaching practice, I would be a happy guy. But fortunately, I was very good at what I do. And that kind of led to lots of opportunities like speaking and mentoring and other streams of income. But what I learned was this beautiful analogy is that if you only focus on one stream, it is like driving your car down a country lane. It's narrow, and when traffic occurs, you can't really move anywhere, and you have to slow down and you can grind to a standstill. Right. Whereas if you run your business and set it up like a motorway, where you have different lanes. If one lane hits traffic, you can switch lanes. You can keep switching lanes as conditions around you change. And so it made me more adaptable to whatever the world threw my way.
And was there a moment when you started to realize that you could diversify? Because you said I was very good at what I do, which has been apparent. What was that? Can you recall the moment that took you from coaching to, I know obviously we've got the book, the content, the keynote speaking, the strategy. Was there a moment when you saw that pivot happen? This episode is sponsored by Videonary, the brand new video tool which is designed to help create business videos that feel simple and not stressful. With Videonary, you've got an all-in-one tool that will allow you to script, edit, plan, and even record all your videos in one place without the need for some huge big production setup. And if you're anything like me, video content can take me hours to produce. No longer needs to be the case. And if you want to be one of the first to access Videonary when it launches later this month, head to videonary.com to join the waitlist and for some early access bonuses. Can you recall the moment that took you from coaching to, I know obviously we've got the book, the content, the keynote speaking, the strategy. Was there a moment when you saw that pivot happen?
Yeah, mentally. So for me, it was a difference between having a goal and having a vision. Okay. So when I first started, my goal was to be a successful coach. My goal was to impact the lives of people I would have conversations with. But as I moved to vision, it became broader. So for me, the vision was, well, what did I want my legacy to be? Yeah. And the legacy was I wanted to inspire and empower people to write a better story. And when I began to be clear on that vision, I realized that I could accomplish that not just with coaching. Coaching was just one medium, but I could still accomplish that through other methods. I could speak, I could mentor, I could consult, I could do it through content, writing, video, articles, blog posts, media interviews. Suddenly there was a variety of different ways that I could explore that would still hit that vision of me making that a reality. So you came up with this vision, realizing I can impact so many more lives if I do something that's more than one-to-one. Absolutely. What was the moment when you got your first opportunity and how did that come about? Yeah, so specifically to the speaking, I remember when I was learning my trade and I was learning strategies and how to grow a business, I would go to lots of events and seminars. Right. And I would be sitting in the audience. And I noticed that a lot of people sitting in the audience were going to consume the content that was shared by the speakers. For me, I was more fascinated about the mechanics. I wanted to codify what were they doing well? Why did some speakers get really engaged audiences and some speakers just didn't land with the audience? And I noticed it was such a powerful way when you get it right to scale your brand and impact, because you weren't just speaking to the people in the room, you were speaking to their network, their friends, their family. If what you said landed with somebody in the audience, they would either take a photo, they would take some videos, or they would share on their social media. And that would scale your impact. And I looked at the people on that stage at the time. So this was at the Excel Center. And I said, imagine I was up on that stage. Imagine what I could do with the work I'm currently working on. And so after that, I just went onto the internet. I Googled all the events going on in London. I would put myself out and say, hey, I will speak at your event for free in exchange for a testimonial, in exchange for me being able to take some content. And it was my way of trying to build my confidence, to build my experience of speaking in front of a room of strangers, and to see where that would go. And as I tested that, speaking started off just as a marketing avenue where I did it for free in exchange for awareness about my work. Yeah. It suddenly became something I really enjoyed. But it was just the courage to experiment. I just saw at the beginning of my journey that anything that came to mind that looked interesting, why not just experiment and learn from the feedback? You spoke to me about I go and I watch and I codify what I want to learn. But how do you then, so you can watch, but obviously you want to be original. So what was it that you did then to make yourself a really great speaker and be uniquely Simon Alexander Ong? Like how did you create your tone and your voice? Sure. So there's a quote by the author Austin Kleon that goes, the more you speak, the faster you find your voice. And so for me, it's the more I was speaking, the more I was able to understand what messages felt connected to me and the audience, what messages seemed to come naturally, what stories did I enjoy sharing, what topics did I enjoy talking about. And over time, you find out what makes you, in the sense that we all have different ways of sharing a story, different ways of connecting with an audience. You have some speakers who are much calmer, more peaceful in the way they connect with the audience. And you have some speakers that are very energetic. They're very physical in terms of their ability to connect with an audience. And so it's not about saying, I want to copy this person's way of presenting or speaking. It's thinking about, well, what are the structures I need to think about to share my own stories and experiences? And then just test your way of delivering it. And you will work out as you speak on more stages, what sort of ways of delivering are more aligned to you. What comes more naturally than just trying to copy someone else.
And what's your method? Do you, I mean, obviously now you must have your signature
so I'll give an example.
Yes,
so
please. What's the method of learning?
When I saw speakers on stages that didn't connect with an audience, I saw that the majority of those speakers would always begin in the same way. They would say something like, so, hey, I'm Simon, and today I'm going to walk you through the 7 stages of how to change your life. And we're going to begin here. We're going to move on to the second stage here. I'm going to finish here, and then we're going to wrap up with this. Before you've even finished saying that, you've lost the audience.
You've lost them, yeah.
And so I would, I love watching James Bond films. And one of the things I loved about James Bond films that I codified into speaking was that a James Bond film never starts at the beginning. So as soon as the movie kicks off, it throws you into the action. And then once the action finishes, you have the James Bond theme. And then it picks up where the beginning left off. And so I took that analogy into speaking. And I said, imagine if I could begin every talk with a James Bond opening. I would go straight into the action. I would set the scene. I would allow the audience to visualize this moment that I'm sharing with them. And then I would tie it back into the theme of the talk. And then tell them why what I shared just now was relevant. And then another technique I began to learn over time was to finish your talk with a crescendo. So a crescendo in music is when the music starts to pick up. So a lot of people, when they speak, is at the end, it just kind of falls flat.
Down, right.
And so if you can finish it with a crescendo, what happens is that people go away with something in their mind that forces them to reflect. So it could be a very powerful question, such as, how much longer will you avoid doing what you're capable of in order to continue with what you're comfortable doing? It could be a quote, or it could be a story for them to reflect as they leave the stage, as they leave the arena, to take home with them.
And was there a moment, or was there a talk that was the talk that then set you onto those bigger stages? You're with an agency now.
Yeah.
So was there like one in particular that really got you noticed?
I think there's not been one. There's been probably a few that led on to something.
Okay.
So for example, one of my first talks was with Barclays in Canary Wharf, the bank.
Yeah.
And I did that talk with no expectation of what was going to happen. And at the end of it, they not only booked me again to speak, but we ended up shooting a commercial that year where they interviewed me about better lifestyle habits that could help create a richer life. It was about 2 or 3 minute interview, but it was cut down to like 20, 30 seconds for the advert in the cinemas and in Barclays branches across the UK.
Wow.
And after that, I just started getting inquiries from other companies and conferences. And then I think when the book came out in 2022, that really added fire to my speaking, because suddenly more people, especially people who hadn't come across my work before, now wanted me to come into their conference, into their company, and to share some of my thoughts with them.
And you have said, even from your days, from your days when you're at university and networking, because was it that you had missed a year, so hadn't been able to do the milk round? So tell us what happened.
So what happened at university is, it's the first time where I didn't have parents around me. I didn't have my dad or family around me. So in a way, I went to an extreme. Yeah. Because when I grew up, it was very strict. It was a very strict household. We had to be home by a certain point. We couldn't drink. And so suddenly I was at university. I had this freedom to go and live my life. Yeah. And I went to the opposite extreme. I was partying a lot. I was drinking a lot. Yeah. And so that was probably why I failed my second year. Yeah. And it wasn't a nice conversation to have with my dad at the time in the summer of that year. Yeah. That I'd failed a year. But It actually forced me to build some of the skills that I'm now benefiting from when it comes to entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
Because I knew that in the year after, I couldn't get an internship because of my grades. At the time, to land an internship, you had to fill an online application form.
Right.
And one of the pages it requires you to fill in is your exam grades. And of course, with 3 Fs, I'm not going to get past that filter.
No.
So I had to be creative with how to get a job, knowing I couldn't go the normal route. And so I would sign up to all of the presentations that these companies were doing at my university.
Yeah.
And I would make sure I would attend as many as I could and just get there early, leave the latest, and just connect with the people there. And I just started building relationships with all of the employees from different banks that were attending. And then the next day I would follow up with each of them. And I would make each follow-up very personal and very specific to what we talked about in those conversations. And then I would simply say, it would be great to grab coffee sometime. I'd love to learn more about what has allowed you to build such a successful career in the job that you're in. And we all have an ego.
And feels like there's got to be confidence, self-belief, and bravery there.
Absolutely.
Were they 3 things that were innate in you? And I was saying that to you before we started the interview. I was like, were you like this from when you were a child? And you said, like what? And I was like, well, this level of self-belief and confidence, because you've got to keep, because the thing is, when you get into these spaces, when you get those big jobs, when you get on those big stages, you then have to maintain it.
Yeah.
So is this something, do you think, that you've always had, or can somebody learn to be like this?
I think it was learned, because when I was young, I was very stereotypical Chinese.
Okay. I
was an introvert. I still am an introvert, very shy. I would never put my hand up to want to go up in front of the class and tell everyone what I did for holidays.
Very shy. And this is the same person that was going up in... to companies and making sure you were the last person. So what was it that you did?
I think that when you are in a position where you have no choice but to do something that pushes you out of your comfort zone, where you're forced to become someone you've never been before to level up, it becomes easy. When you have lots of choices and there's no real reason where you have to act different, you're not. You're going to stay in the comfort of your safety zone. So for me, I was left with no choice. If I didn't do that option, I would have no internship and no future career laid out for me. So the only choice left was I had to grab it by the hands and I had to control it. I had to take control myself and trust that when I went into those rooms, when I went into the interviews, I had what it took.
And those rooms, it feels like that's continued. As I spoke about your book, Energize, you've got 3 quotes on there that I saw: Marie Forleo, Simon Sinek, and Ali Abdal. Like, how were you in a place where you have those as 3 people that you could access to write quotes for your book? And what's the similarity there with the young person who was trying to get an internship? What are those same qualities that you're taking through in the business world?
I think there's quite a few, but the one that jumps to me right now is creativity, is that ability to think different and not do what everyone else is doing. Because if you do what everyone else is doing, you're just going to have what everyone else has.
So what did you do?
So what I did, if I use Marie Forleo as an example.
Yes, please.
So I went to one of her book launch events in London when she was getting out her book, Everything is Figure Outable.
Yes, which I've read and loved.
It was at a members club, so there was about 60 to 80 people there. And I knew her time was limited because she was only in London for a week to promote the book. So she was moving from fireside chat to radio interview to talk, just to kind of push the book out. And at the end of that event, I didn't get a chance to talk to her because she went off and signed books and then she had to dash off to the next event.
Okay.
But I was sitting at the front row. I got there early and I saw someone dressed in that front row in very loud clothing. And I said, I've got to talk to this guy after. There's just something about his energy that makes me want to say hi. So I walk up to this guy at the end and I say, hey, I'm Simon, by the way. I noticed you were very animated throughout Marie's talk about her book. And he said to me, well, Simon, wherever Marie is, I am. And I said, wow, you must be such a big fan of her work.
Yeah, must be a fan.
And he said, well, Simon, somebody's got to do her hair, right? And it was at that moment I realized he was her hairstylist. And so we really connected. I said, how long are you in London for? He said, oh, we're just here for a week. We're a pretty packed schedule. And I said, well, why don't we connect on Instagram? And if you have time, I'll send you over a list of restaurants and bars you should check out in the evening if you're looking for a cool place to eat. And he said, sure, we love our food. Send it over. And then we just stayed in touch for years after that. At that point, I didn't know I was going to write a book. So I just focused on nurturing the relationship. And then I remember...
With the hairstylist.
With the hairstylist, yes.
I am loving this. So it's the connection around.
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's the wider circle.
Yeah.
And fast forward to beginning of 2022.
Yeah.
And Penguin is saying we've got a week left to get the endorsements ready for the book to send to print. And they had sent out an email to Marie Forleo's team already because Marie's also a Penguin author.
I see.
But the issue is how many other Penguin authors are also getting Penguin to send emails to Marie for an endorsement?
Very true. Yeah.
So I'm not going to stand out. And so with 48 hours to go, I drop, his name is Gregory. I drop Gregory a direct message on Instagram and I say, hey, Gregory, if you happen to be doing Marie's hair this week, could you nudge Marie to see if she's okay to provide an endorsement? Penguin have sent an email, but I'm pretty sure she probably hasn't had time to read it yet. The deadline is in 48 hours, so it'd be amazing if you're able to help. No worries if not, but just thought I'd put it out there just in case. And then 24 hours before, he dropped me a message back and he says, Simon, I championed, I nudged her, I mentioned your book's going to be amazing.
Fantastic.
And tomorrow she'll send an email back to your publisher.
And how many years had you been in the DMs just nurturing and building a connection?
So we met in so that would have been about nearly 3-4 years.
Wow. And at this point, you hadn't actually directly built a relationship with Marie?
Not at all.
Fantastic.
Not at all. And in fact, it brings it full circle because earlier this week, I just got back from Dubai.
That's right.
And Marie Forleo was also speaking there. And we finally got to connect and catch up in person.
So are these like lots of singular moments, or was there one thing that happened or one moment that, because lots of singular people is going to take time.
It's going to take time.
Network.
And that's why I think when I look back at habits, so a lot of people these days talk about lifestyle habits.
Yeah.
But when it comes to business habits, I think relationship building has to be a daily, weekly, and monthly habit. It has to be part of the work that you do. Because if you're only building relationships once in a while, you're never really getting deep connections with people. But if you're constantly finding ways to add value to your network, if you're constantly thinking about the people in your network, guess what? You're going to be top of their mind when something comes up that is relevant to you. But if you only treat it as once in a while, then they'll maybe have a call with you or they'll catch up with you for coffee, but then you're forgotten about. So the whole idea of building relationships is not just the initial meet, it's how do you keep it going?
And how do you, because there's always a voice in our head for many of us. I'm not good enough to have this conversation with them. Yeah. They don't have time for me. What do you say to yourself when you can see there's an opportunity? I can see how I can be intentional. What are the words that you're saying to yourself?
The mantra I keep repeating to myself is be attached to no outcome and open to everything. The issue becomes if you attach yourself to whether that conversation works out or not, then your emotional well-being goes for a roller coaster. But if you just see it as, well, let's just see what happens. And if it works out, great. If it doesn't, on to the next one. If you're not too attached to whether it works out or not, then you're able to keep going with it. So even when you mentioned Dubai just now, even when I was in Dubai, I had lots of meetings with people, but I'm not attached to whatever comes of it. I'm just focused on, okay, I'm going to meet these people, find ways to add value. And that's the best I can do. Focus on what is in my control.
As I'm listening, because as someone who I would describe myself probably as an ambivert, actually I'd be buzzing from bumping into people that I know. However, I also know how challenging it can be when I've got someone, I mean, I can still remember seeing you in that field, it took me a little time before I came up to you and I still felt uncomfortable doing it, but I knew it was my opportunity. I thought, if I don't do it now, I'm not going to get to speak to this person who's been on my wish list. But I think the thing I want to reflect back here for like people who are watching or listening is that, yes, you can put yourself in the right space, but actually it's the conversation that you're having with yourself that you are not attached to the outcome.
Absolutely.
That feels for me like the most important piece, because it's more than confidence. It's not confidence. It's almost, is it? I've got nothing to lose.
Absolutely. I mean, the first step is the courage to open your mouth.
Yeah.
The courage to speak to that person.
Yeah.
And then the rest for me is mindset. Because if you go in with a particular goal of, if I'm going to talk to this person, I want to come out of this with this particular goal, and it doesn't happen, you're going to be kicking yourself after. You're not going to be happy with yourself. That's not productive at all. And you can't control that.
Yeah.
You don't know their response. You don't know what their schedule is like. You don't know what's going on in their life. So just go in, find what is common, find ways where you can go, actually, I know this person as well, or I know about this event as well. And then slowly find out how you can add value, or find a way where the thing you want almost is a no-brainer.
And you know what's interesting? It's actually not that different. So with someone as a sales background, that's not that different to your DM strategy.
Absolutely.
It's what's the commonality, what's in it for them. And so I can see how that's really applicable there. What would you say that you are known for? Because coaching is where you started. Obviously, we've got the energy coach piece is really coming through. Then there's the strategy and the leadership. When you describe what you're known for, how do you try and describe it?
It's interesting because there's what I would like to be known for, and then there's what people know me for. So what I like to be known for is just simply inspiring people to live better lives and to realize there is so much more in them than they realize, and they are stronger than they're giving themselves credit for. I think when we begin to realize that, we have greater courage to be bolder in how we show up every day. That's fundamentally what I want to be known for. What people know me for tends to be my speaking and how different I think. So I'll give an example. When I started building my business as a coach and as a speaker, I just saw a lot of my friends were just spending time with other coaches and speakers. And what I learned from my mentors at the time is that if you only look at your competition, you can only be as good as your competition. But if you look outside of your competition, that's how you begin to be innovative. That's how you begin to stand out, because you take something that works in a completely left field industry and you bring it into your own and you give birth to something original. And so that allowed us to do a lot of marketing activations in ways that had never been done before. And so I was very intentional about my network. I didn't just want to spend time with other coaches and speakers. I ended up spending time with film directors. I ended up spending time with musicians, with venture capital firms, with entrepreneurs, successful entrepreneurs, with sports people, with chefs. And so what happened is, because my network became so diverse, I was able to do collaborations with people that people had never thought about. I was able to be creative with how I approached my marketing, with how I saw the world in a way that my fellow coaches and speakers couldn't. And so that was something I was very intentional about. And it's helped me today with, for example, the book launch. When we launched the book, we partnered with the Connaught Hotel because I knew the bartender there, and he's an iconic bartender.
It was from
one of the most
bartender.
well-known. It was from the bartender.
Wow.
And he said, why don't we create a cocktail named after your book, Energize? And also my connection to a celebrity chef to design a 7-course menu around my book, and to an artist whose work graces the lobbies of offices and luxury hotels to design a piece of art inspired by my work. Now, these collaborations blew the mind of people in my industry. And it blew the mind of people on my network, saying, how the hell did you come up with that? Who came up with that idea? You know, that's such a really cool and different idea, but it got their attention.
Yeah.
It got everybody's attention. And that taught me that marketing is very much about attention. If you can grab the attention of your audience, then you can tell them what you do. Then you can tell them all your services and your products. But without the attention, how do you grow your product or service? You need eyeballs and ears about what you have to share.
And how do you organize this information? So as you're capturing all this information, is there a team that you download everything to and they capture it? Or do you have a method by which you capture all of these incredible ideas that you have? People that you meet as well, actually.
I record the ideas. The people I meet over time, I'm naturally just remembering these relationships because, as I said, these relationships aren't just one and done. These relationships are one, and let's keep nurturing these relationships. Now, a lot of them would just be virtual. So it's finding ways and reasons to keep connected. So I don't do it as much now because I've got a much bigger audience and I'm a lot busier than I used to be. But at the beginning of the journey, every time I got connected with somebody on LinkedIn, for example, I would drop them a voice note. And the reason the voice note works is for two reasons. The first is we are curious creatures. So when you get a message come through on your phone in the notifications, if it's text, and usually they give you a preview of the text, you might get the gist of what they want to say and you'll go, oh, it's that. And then you swipe it away and ignore it. Or it could be, oh yeah, I've got to get back to that person. And then you get back to them maybe tomorrow, but you'll schedule it. But if it's a voice note and it just has a play button, you're like, what's in it? I'm curious to check it out. It definitely does
leave me curious,
And so because we're curious, we hit the play button and that conversion is near 100%. And then the second part is when somebody hears your voice, they hear your energy. Voice carries energy in a way that text never can. And so once they hear that, they get a feeling of what you do and who you are.
Yeah.
And so that for me, it's quite surprising, but that for me has led to so many speaking opportunities because people would hear my voice and then they would get even more curious and go check out my page, check out my website, check out my content.
Because that's the journey someone goes on straight away.
Exactly.
You're right.
That's how they enter your ecosystem. And then some of them would drop me a voice note back and say, by the way, you're the first person to have sent me a voice note on LinkedIn. I've now gone and checked out all of your work and we would love to invite you to be a speaker at our next conference. And we think you would just energize the audience. And that was simply from a voice note. Now, the good thing about a platform like LinkedIn is it also tells you when your network's birthdays are.
Yes.
And so that gives you another reason to connect. At least once a year, you can drop them a voice note, just again, to keep you top of people's minds. And so just jumping into their direct message and saying, hey, just wanted to wish you a very happy birthday. Hope you have a great day and look forward to catching up soon again. So it's just finding reasons and ways to keep top of people's minds.
So we've got network, you keep up here.
Yeah.
And then ideas,
Ideas, I record them.
You record them. And then is there a team?
With regards to the ideation, that's just me. When I draw on a team, it's mainly for content.
Yeah.
So if I'm traveling to speak, I will have someone in my team sort of capture content, photo, videography. Like when we met at Ideas Fest, somebody was capturing content for me.
Okay, that's when you pull them in.
And then we pull them in.
Yeah.
And then we then have somebody else that edits. We can distribute the content. So from a content side, we're always working with a team. When it comes to the actual delivery of speaking coaching, of course, that's just me.
Yeah.
When it's relationships, it's mostly just me because people know me and they want to build a relationship with me.
Yeah.
And if I've had those meetings and I can remember what we spoke about, what we covered, I can just pull that straight from my notes and use it when we have a follow-up meeting. So I like to own sort of the way the relationships are done because sometimes they're very personal. And in many cases, some of the people I get to connect with don't really want somebody else knowing what we spoke about or kind of jumping into the email chain. They like to just have that personal relationship. So I like owning that part of the business.
And do you have a certain amount of time that you set aside for business development in a week, in a day?
It's interesting because I think every day is business development.
That's what I was thinking from listening to you.
It's just part of how you show up. So whether it's getting back to WhatsApps, whether it's having a coffee meeting, whether it's introducing someone in your network together. For me, business development is just part of how I live every day. You're always finding ways to further the business.
And do you think the fact that you obviously so you invest, you said to me, you kind of advise and invest in businesses. We've got the working one-to-one with a very select level of high-end clients. And then you've got the speaking. That model also suggests to me that there's a lot more fluidity in your day.
Absolutely. The days can be fluid. And then of course we've got content.
Yeah.
So with YouTube, we aim for 2 a month. Of course, with that comes research, scripting, shooting, editing, distribution. So it's really about understanding how do these different streams blend in together, because we don't want to make it more difficult for ourselves. If we shoot a YouTube video, for example, we've scripted it, how do we take that content and create Instagram content from it or LinkedIn content? And then how do we leverage AI to help in some of these processes? And how do we just make sure each of them are streamlined enough so we're not exhausted, but we're just working smarter and very intentionally?
Now, I don't know many people who have got from zero to, I think it was 0 to 130,000 in a year on YouTube subscribers.
It was insane growth.
Was there a testing? Because so obviously, me being me, I went to the very first video because I don't do anything any other way. Went to the very first video and I was like, okay, from the outside looking in, Simon hit the ground running here. So was there a test phase, and what was it that has meant that you have had that level of success?
Well, first of all, when you went to the first video, you probably saw that the quality was very different to the more recent ones.
Yeah, I mean, it was older. It was older than the rest of the content.
Yeah, it looks a lot older. It looked a bit more raw.
It was still pretty good, Simon.
Not so much editing. But, the speaking's still the same. Speaking hasn't changed. It's just the packaging was probably a little different. But usually before I jump into something, I want to do a bit of research.
Of course.
Into how am I going to approach it. I don't just want to record content and then put it out and hope for the best. I mean, you're still hoping in some way, but if you kind of are intentional with how you put it together, at least you're going in with a strategy. So I spent a few weeks before just thinking about, okay, if I'm going to do this YouTube thing, I need to make sure I'm doing it well. And I started looking at other YouTube creators that had blown up in a very short amount of time, 0 to 100K in less than a year.
So research them first.
So research them first. People that got to 1 million within 3 years. And I just started understanding, well, what was it they were doing that allowed such an acceleration in growth? And what I saw in common was their packaging. Right. Now, before I saw any of the videos, I just wanted to see their thumbnails, their channels, and just the packaging before I clicked and watched the videos. And I noticed they all had very good titles. The thumbnails were very visually attractive, and it made me curious enough to want to click. And that was almost the first lesson. Yeah. Is that it doesn't matter what your content's about. Your content could be amazing, but if it's not packaged in a way that makes me want to click, nobody's going to be watching it. So that was the first lesson I learned, because I used to think that if I focus enough on making some amazing piece of content, everybody will watch it. Not true, because people have to actually click first. So you have to get people to click. That was the first lesson I took away. And then the second was about the structure of the video. It wasn't just jump in and share good content. It was, how do I structure it? So in the first almost 45 to 60 seconds, I've hooked them in to want to watch the rest of the video. And there's a term in YouTube called open loops. So you plant some questions in the viewers' minds, but you don't answer them straight away. They're answered later in the video. And so once I started to understand these structures, the packaging, then I said, okay, if I were to shoot my first 3 videos, what would they be on? And then I just planned it out. And then I started to brainstorm the ideas for videos by looking at outlier videos that were doing well. And for me, an outlier in a video is a video that has performed exceptionally well relative to your subscriber count. So if somebody has only got, let's say, 25,000 subscribers, but they published a video within the last 6 weeks that has got 250,000 views or more, that for me is an outlier. It's a massive outlier. It's performed really well. So then I would watch that video. I would look at the title and I would say, what would be my version of that? And
you literally sat on your own or with a team?
Yeah, I would literally sit on my own and do all of that research myself. Because again, going back to what we touched on earlier, I love codifying things.
Clearly,
and sometimes the process of codifying the mechanics and really seeing the patterns, you can't always outsource that. Well, not yet, because you have to at least understand the basics. And then you can come and say, this is what I've already noticed. Can you help me find other patterns that you've noticed in a similar vein?
Okay, gosh.
And so for me, whenever I start something new, I really want to understand at least the basics of what works. So if I interview and hire people, which we're doing now, in terms of working with editors and working with new team members, I know what I'm looking for. Yeah. I know what's a basic requirement, and I know what I don't know. So if they can fill in those gaps, then we can take it to the next level. So whenever I start something new, I at least want to get to grips with the basics and really understand how this sort of channel works.
And yourself and your wife, Laurie, is that right? Hit 100,000 each.
In the same weekend.
In the same weekend. I mean, what was the household like that weekend?
November 24.
It was November 24.
November 2024, we both went for 100,000 subscribers. Wow. And we were amazed. I mean, not just at the achievement, but we were amazed how fast it was.
And also both of you.
Both of us. And what we realized, and this is something I share with a lot of aspiring YouTubers.
And sorry, Simon, is she in a different field?
She's in a very similar field to me now.
Right,
so,
okay.
I mean, we both met in finance, and she started off doing marketing on YouTube. She's pivoted to a bit more productivity and AI and that sort of stuff.
Right, okay.
Again, just gauging what the audience were enjoying in terms of content. But when I look back, one of the things I share with aspiring YouTubers is that you just need one video to go viral in a given year, and you'll get easily to 100,000 subscribers. So one video in 2024 was a video called I'm 40. If you are in your 20s or 30s, watch this. And it was a video that I published on my 40th birthday. And I started the video with, I'm 40 today, and if I could go back in time, I would tell my younger self this. And I knew by starting with I'm 40 today, even if people didn't watch the rest of the video, there would be a small percentage of viewers that would literally go in the comments and say happy birthday. So immediately I'm getting comments of happy birthday to help with the engagement.
You're so good.
And so that video ended up getting 1 million in, I think it was 2.5 weeks, then 2 million, then 3 million. And now I think it's close to 4 million now. And that contributed nearly 76,000 subscribers.
So helpful to hear that. Love that.
From one video. So the way you want to see video distribution is like you're filling in a lottery ticket.
Yeah.
Each time you publish a video, you filled in a lottery ticket. You don't know what the numbers are going to be, but just being in the game means that when the numbers go your way, you've got a ticket in play.
When they go your way.
Absolutely.
And then that's where the mindset comes in, because it can take a long time with content to get that hit.
And that's why you have to manage your expectations. When I started the YouTube journey, I said to myself, my goal is to hit 100,000 subscribers, but I gave myself 3 years to do it.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
I said it's going to take a while, and 3 years will give me enough time to test if I can be consistent in those 3 years that I'm doing this for. But we did it in 10 months. We broke through 100,000 subscribers in 10 months, and there's lots to learn from it. And now I think we're 180,000 as of this moment. And the next goal is to hit 300, 350.
Phenomenal.
So again, it's seeing it like a game. It's learning, it's testing, and it's not being attached. Again, going back to this idea of not being attached to the outcome. It's put the video out, learn from the feedback, learn what worked, what didn't work, move on to the next one. Yeah. But don't dwell on the fact it may not have performed the way you wanted to.
Be ready to move on.
Just be ready to go to the next one and realize you just did the best you could. And for me, as long as I enjoyed the video, so if I was watching that myself, would I enjoy that video?
Yeah.
And did I do the best I could with the packaging? Done. The rest is the algorithm. And I just move on to the next one.
Phenomenal. How has being a father changed you as an entrepreneur, and how has it changed your mission?
It's made me a better human. It's made me a better coach. And I think it's just given me even more reason to make this mission a reality and to leave a legacy for my daughter. Yeah. Because I think that if you're a parent, you can relate to the fact that you also become a better leader. Yeah. Because children remind us of so many things that we as adults forget. I mean, one of the things I often tell my clients and people I speak to is that as we grow up, we end up planning like adults, but we forget to dream like children.
We do, yeah.
And with children, there are no limits. You ask a child what they want to be when they grow up, they'll say things as wild as, I want to be an astronaut. You know, I want to conquer the planetary system.
They do say wild things, yeah.
They got some crazy ideas.
They have,
but this is good, because sometimes we need to be reminded of that. We need to remind ourselves that our inner child still has dreams. And imagine if we could reconnect with that and to realize that we've only got one life. What is there to lose? You know, our time is limited. And so having children really reminded me of that. Yeah. And also the creative side. You know, the creative side, children are creative. They work out ways to get what they want. You know, they really want something, and you tell them no, yeah. they'll find a way. Yeah. And so I remember one time I was attending a camp class. My daughter was in summer camp. And at the end of this week, we as parents were allowed to go into this class to see what they were up to and to pick them up to take them home. And at the end, the teacher put all of the girls into a circle. And she said, as a thank you for coming this week, I want to give each of you a colored egg shaker. Just like a little toy they could take away. Yeah. And it was in a basket. She went around to each girl, and each girl stood up. They took a colored egg shaker. And she said, just take one, it's one each. And she comes to my daughter at the end, and she stands up with a big smile. And she takes out 2 egg shakers. And the teacher says, excuse me, Sienna, you know you're only meant to take one. And at that point, she gives me the second one. And she says, but I did only take one. The second one was for my dad.
Wow.
And she said, well, technically you haven't broken the rules, so that's fine. And just said, well, I hope you enjoyed that. And that was the end of the class. And as we walked out of the room, down the corridor, she looked up at me and she said, Dad, can I have my egg back? And she got 2 eggs out of this situation. And it just reminded me that you should never take no as a final answer. You should never see that there is only one way
Very clever
to get to where you want to get to. Start looking at an alternative path to get to where you want to get to, because one always exists. It's just about seeing something from a different perspective.
I mean, honestly, Simon, what obviously what a smart girl. Yeah. But I think the thing that was funny there is I thought you were going to say, and then she was like, Daddy, I did that for you. But no, Daddy, I want that. So yeah, she's they do say the apple doesn't fall far. So she
probably observes a lot of what I do.
Exactly. Thank you so much for the most phenomenal conversation. I personally have taken away so much from that. I'm going to be watching that video for sure. The one that starts with "I'm 40 today."
Yeah.
It's my birthday very soon. I'll be doing that. Simon, what's the one question I haven't asked you that you would have liked to have answered?
I would probably reframe that and maybe say, what is a question we haven't touched on that it's important for people to understand or hear?
I'm very happy to go with that.
I think that question would be, what is something people should understand more about maybe your guests' journeys and stories that isn't spoken about enough? And for me, that would be the fact that I'm still winging it. I'm still making things up as I go along. And it's to connect with the audience and say, wherever you are on the journey, you are going to have your challenges. I still have my challenges as well. And pain is part of that process. Pain is part of the journey. But pain on its own just creates suffering. Pain with reflection creates purpose. And it helps you understand that through that pain, you acquire wisdom. The wisdom to build a better life, the wisdom to show up stronger, and to come back with a story that will inspire others. And to realize we're all human at the end of the day. What you're going through, chances are I've also gone through as well. And we all face challenges. The question is, how are you going to respond to them?
Absolutely. Well, Simon, thank you so much. I'm going to end with 2 things. The first is we've got 2 traditions here. One is it's called the 60-second atomic clock.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask you a question related to what you teach and your area of expertise, and then 60 seconds to answer the question. Are you up for the challenge?
Let's do it.
Great. Okay. And I will just have to get my watch up. Perfect. So here you go. Thinking about what you teach, what's the most common energy drain that business leaders and founders need to change or remove, and how do they do it?
Perfect. Answer is simple. It's busyness. We mistakenly believe that in order to be productive, we have to be busy. We have to always be doing something. But rest is as productive as work, if done intentionally. So work and rest are partners of the same team. Rest should never be just a reward for having got all the things you wanted to have done. So if you can build routines and rhythms where work and rest are thought about, working in a deep way, but resting intentionally, then you are going to be able to thrive, not just survive.
Okay. Superb answer. And I think that was well within the minute. And then just a little bit about you as we close, which is, what are you watching, listening to, and reading right now?
Well, watching is quite broad. I would say I'm just watching anybody doing things differently and growing at scale, because that allows me to test those ideas as well. Yeah. So it's a very broad way. So watching could be anything from like watching in public, whether they're speaking on stage, through their content, through how they show up in life. So that's a very broad thing. So I'm just watching lots of people. Very curious. Yeah, very curious. What am I listening to? Right now, it's I'm not going to say podcast because it's a very easy one to jump to, but I'm listening to a lot of classical music.
Me too.
Because
love that.
right now it's really keeping me focused. I've been doing a lot of traveling recently.
Yeah.
And there's something about classical music that keeps me focused on what matters and reminds me of the vision that I'm working towards. And the third one
is reading? Are you reading any books at the moment?
Yeah, I'm reading lots of Ryan Holiday books at the moment.
Okay. Tell me them again.
So he's known for The Obstacle is the Way, Ego is the Enemy. More recently, he's got a Stoic series.
Okay.
So I'm reading some of that series.
And could you tell me his name again?
Ryan Holiday.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Simon. I have loved our conversation. I'm so glad I cornered you in that field, and I really, really appreciate all that you shared.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Wasn't that a brilliant conversation? I feel like there were three kind of big strands there that came through for us. I think the first was the way he codifies and studies things before he then becomes a master in that area. So all the way through from how he studied YouTube, he studied great speakers, but then he pairs that with a creativity, and he talks about his circle of influence. You know, he goes outside of the business sphere, and how really it's that creativity, the codifying, but also removing himself from the outcome. So it's almost like I have nothing to lose here. It's quite evident to me how much he loves what he does, but how there is a model there that so many of us can apply. And I think it's really important how he talked about you have to be as unintentional with rest as you are with your commitment to where you want to go and what you want to achieve. So yeah, thoroughly enjoyed that conversation, and I felt there was a lot that we could all learn. Thanks so much for listening to Don't Work Harder. If you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe and share. This show has been brought to you by Atomic, the home of epic business growth. Head to our website at atomic.site to hear more about our business programs and epic events.